Like if on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? I'd rather you say 1 so you can actually level up.
I think that's a motivator. I think that's a good thing. When you don't do your best work, shouldn't you feel guilty? At least to some extent?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we talked about the 5 buckets of friendship. Today, for episode number 560, are you telling yourself these lies? So this is another topic that we spoke about on one of the latest speeches we gave. Alan and I have compiled a ton of data between coaching calls, between the questionnaires for our speeches, and between what used to be Hyperconscious Nation and is now Next Level Nation.
Oh, yeah?
Where we, for a long time, I don't even know what the questions are anymore. I think they're still the same.
One of them is, how confident are you?
That is the one.
Yep.
So Alan and I had a question, and we still do. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you, I think, in your everyday life?
Right.
And a lot of people we would see would have 7, 8, 9, 10, but Alan and I actually knew these people,
right,
had been on the phone with these people. Maybe these people were clients or maybe just people that we knew, and they weren't as confident as they actually said they were. We recently did a speech, and one of the questions was, what's holding you back from your goals? There was 10 different questions, and we had one person who basically answered none to all of them.
Yeah, what's holding me back? Nothing.
Nothing. And it's like, okay, maybe you're at the most amazing place in the world in your journey, or you maybe aren't humble enough or confident enough to admit where you need help. And a couple of reasons that matters. One, if you don't admit you need help, are you going to search for it?
Right.
If you don't admit you need help, are you going to be open to it?
Right.
Right? Like, that's huge. So, are you telling yourself those kind of lies of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? You feel like a 4, but you say you're a 7 because you don't want to look bad. Now, that's fine. I understand that. Right? I understand that. But do you actually think you're a 7 when you're a 4? Another question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard are you working to make your dreams come true? It's easy to say 10. It is. But I'm not doing a 10.
Oh, yeah. Nope.
Right? So I think that if you're lying to yourself with these things, you're number one, you're only hurting yourself. And number two, you might not know it until it's, I don't want to say it's too late, because you can always regain momentum, but until there's been a lot of damage done.
So I guess that question of how confident are you in your everyday life, what would you have answered way back? 26.
Oh, wow. I would probably have lied. Yeah, I probably would have said, 26, I'm making a lot of money, I'm in really good shape. Probably.
So you would have pointed to external things?
Yeah, probably like 7. Probably would have said like 7 or 8.
Right. And do you think that that's what a lot of our listeners did?
I don't know. I think a couple things. I think, one, you don't want to say... We had a breakthrough where somebody literally said they were a 1.
Yeah.
And we were like, I don't know that you can be a 1 and say you're a 1, because it requires a level of confidence to say that you don't have any confidence.
I know.
So
it's a trip.
I don't know if it's just self-awareness or if people know that people are going to be reading it, so maybe they answer differently. I just think it's super important to make sure that you're self-aware, hyper-conscious of where you actually think you are versus where you actually are.
So who's someone in your life who believes they're way more confident than they really are? And you can keep it anonymous.
Sure.
Think of that person. Okay. Why, I guess, what is holding them back? How is this holding them back?
Well, I think it's holding them back for a number of reasons. I think, one, they're less likely to get outside of their comfort zone or get in over their head, because why would you? Right? If you feel like people don't know as much about something, why would you? I think that's one thing. And then I think the second one is, if you're not self-aware in that one arena, it probably carries over to other things. On a scale of 1 to 10, how amazing are you to your partner? It's easy to say 10. This weekend, I wasn't a 10. I was in a rough state. I was probably a 7. I think it's so important, because I could lie to myself and say I was a 10, but when Taryn and I have a conversation, you get the truth. You're going to figure out what it was.
From her perspective.
Yeah. Which is the perspective that, and obviously we got to drive to 5.
Right.
But just because I think I'm treating her as a 10 doesn't mean she feels it.
Exactly.
And if I live my life through that lens, I'm going to be Jeffing.
I think that we all tell ourselves lies. What I'm trying to figure out is, when, where, and why, and what are the lies we're telling? I guess what are some of the lies that you believe others tell themselves, or our listeners might be telling themselves? And we're all guilty of this.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, this isn't us ganging up on you guys. This is us
Right.
going, back into the past and realizing, oh, okay. One for me is I'm working as hard as I possibly could.
Yeah, no, of course you're not.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That was one.
Right.
You and I talked about this recently. Like I was playing Call of Duty at noon in between calls, and I was like, oh, I'm just taking R&R. I went way too far.
Right.
So I had to have that moment of humility and say like, okay, yep, you're Jeffing this.
Yep.
And then I disconnected it, and I only play when I hang out with Matt every once in a while.
Right.
Right. So that changed. So that, I don't know. I think anytime there's a courageous conversation that has to happen, you can always come up with an excuse. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to do it right now. Like, we're going to stay up late having this conversation. I need to get some sleep.
Right.
When it comes to other people, I think it's probably anything that directly puts you out of your comfort zone. I think it's our human nature to say like, I'll do that when I'm this or when I'm that.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that, of course.
It's the pain avoidance tendency. It's I guess I'm trying to think of where I avoid pain. We all do it. I guess, how do you stop yourself from doing that?
That's a great question. I think you have to understand that confidence comes after awareness. Like if on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? I'd rather you say 1 so you can actually level up.
What are you at?
How confident am I? It depends.
In general, not necessarily in this moment. From 0 to 10. Because you can only base it off of what you've felt before.
Yeah.
So you might feel like a 10, like, and I'm not saying you do. Probably not right now. Yeah, because Kevin and I have had some deep talks today that are a lot of mirrors.
For sure.
But it's weird because it's like there's a contrast bias of the human mind. So let's say you asked me, how confident are you 0 to 10? I would say I'm more confident than I've ever been. But that doesn't mean I can't become more confident. So I would say I would be very, very high. I think
it depends for me. It depends on the state. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on the state always.
It depends on what, when I feel like we have a ton of momentum and I'm on a bunch of other shows, then my confidence is higher because my competence and the results seem higher.
Right.
If I had to say like an average right now, probably like a 7.5, 8.
Okay. Where was it a 10?
Oh, I don't know if it's ever been a 10. I don't know if it's ever been a 10. Maybe. I mean, if I look back to like bodybuilding prep, like I was, and I don't mean this in any way, I was kind of the best, the most in shape person in almost any gym I was in, just because I was extremely lean and I was training for a show and not everybody was. So I think my confidence then was super high because I had the result that I wanted. I would say that.
I think that what you were doing is you're looking at externals
For sure.
to measure your internal confidence.
Yeah.
And I think we all do that to a certain extent. I think that I guess, do you think that is that how you gauge your confidence now? You look around?
I try not to. The story I tell this when I'm on other shows a lot, is I was walking around my kitchen one day, and I remember for the first time ever, I just was like, oh, I really like who I am. And I think that's real confidence. I think...
You feel that way now?
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with my character. It's awesome that we're on the path we're on. Some days it sucks. Obviously, it's hard. I get overwhelmed, whatever. But I think that confidence is knowing it's figureoutable, but I think it's also, it has to do with who you are as a person.
Right.
You have to like who you are as a person.
You have to.
Because if not, you're going to do the Kevin way and say like, oh, well, I made this amount of money and all this. So I would say it definitely, that one of my lessons, and again, we always take lessons from these episodes too. That's why one of the best parts about podcasting is the fact that everything you guys learn, a lot of times we learn on the episodes.
Or
when we do it.
relearn. Yeah.
For me, it's I have to detach from the outcome. Like I know that I put a lot of emphasis into that.
So if you're out there listening right now, how much do you feel? Well, I'll ask Kev. How much do you feel good about yourself from 0 to 10?
I mean, it's hard because like you said, we've had some very hard talks today, so probably not super high. As a running theme,
I think that feeling good about yourself is predicated on how well you keep the promises you make to yourself. I think that so Brendan Burchard talks about this. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I still want to hear your answer. Brendan Burchard says, I really love guilt. I remember thinking about that. I'm like, he's like, I really love that when I don't do a good job, I feel guilty. Because it's my highest self saying, hey, you're better than that. You can do better than that. I'm that way. Shame is a different story. Shame is when you do a behavior and it's like, I suck. Instead of, no, that sucked. See, there's a difference between doing a terrible job on a speech and then being a terrible speaker. Those are two different lives right there. And so guilt, I think, is a good thing. And I agree with him. I do, Kev, sincerely, I feel guilty when I don't do a great job. You've seen it. How many times have you seen me feel guilty
Many.
when I did? Right. And I think that's a motivator. I think that's a good thing. When you don't do your best work, shouldn't you feel guilty? At least to some extent?
Yeah.
Okay, but shame is like, I suck at this. I'm a bad person. Guilt is, I did a poor job that one time, right? And so I guess from your perspective, when I ask you, do you feel good about yourself? I would argue that if you don't right now, it's probably because you don't feel like you've been stepping up based on your own standards.
I think it makes sense. I think it depends on the trend, right? Like, how do you quantify it? I think you look back on the last week or 2 weeks, and the last 2 or 3 weeks have just been a lot of feedback, a lot of mirrors, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of long days. And again, that's all par for the course. But I definitely, like I said, if you're listening to this, it's on Friday. So last weekend, I took some time for me because I was burnt out. So I don't know that I feel like I'm on top of my game necessarily.
For the listeners, I just really want you to hear this because I'm going to try to do something with Kev here.
Oh boy.
From 0 to 10, how good do you feel about who you are in comparison to who you were at 26?
10.
Okay. From 0 to 10, how good do you feel about who you are?
Compared to what?
Just in general.
Who I am as a person?
I think that's kind of the point I wanted to make. It's so obvious that it's a 10 compared to who you used to be. But compared to who you want to be.
Oh, boy. I don't know, because the person, I don't know that my character is going to change a lot. It will definitely improve.
For sure.
As I improve, and I'll be more inclusive and more understanding and patient and supportive and all those. I would say probably like an 8.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What's the... sorry.
Yeah, therapy session. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome,
I just think
welcome.
it's important. I think the listeners are going to take so much from this. From 0 to 10, how proud are you of your character?
10.
Okay. From 0 to 10, how proud are you of your skills?
I'd say probably an 8.
Okay. From 0 to 10, how proud are you of how well you followed through on your intentions lately?
You hit me after a rest weekend.
Yeah.
7.
Okay. Let me ask you this. When you said a 7, I guess what's the sort... It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's like a therapy. It's just interesting. I'm laughing. I promise.
What do you think is the source of your... What's the most fulfilling part of you? Like, what are you most proud of about yourself?
The fact that some days I have to pinch myself because this is what we get to do for a job. Yeah. It's wild to me. It blows my mind. That's where, like, for me, perspective is huge.
Right.
Because I look back and, like, again, we record on Monday, so it's Monday. If you're listening to this is on Friday, I most likely would be crawling around in an attic somewhere. Right now, it's in Massachusetts on the East Coast. It's cold as hell. I'd be crawling around in an attic, freezing, or sweating to death, one of the two, depending on the building.
Right.
You know?
I do that often, especially if I want to feel more grateful. I go into some of my darkest memories. I do that often because everything else is so gravy in comparison. It's like I often am... Let's say I'm not getting a great workout and I'm really frustrated with... So yesterday I was frustrated with how few reps I got in incline bench press. It's whatever, right? I'm trying to do better than I did and I didn't. And I didn't carb up and, I was a little weaker than I'd hoped. I'm 194.5 pounds, blah, blah, blah. I'm not where I want to be. That's fine. It's all good. That's called growth and striving. Great. But I would have... Dude, I'm telling you, in high school, when I was a little scrawny kid that got made fun of, I would have killed to look like I do now. I have to remember that. I constantly remind myself, like, go back there. And it gives me energy. It motivates me. It makes me feel really empowered. Like, there are a lot of high school kids in our gym right now. And I don't know if it's because their school gym is closed or what. But some of these kids like are very, very young and new to the gym, and they look at you, and it's like you can tell they look at you with so much respect and admiration, and honestly envy at times. And I think it's important to when you're going to gauge your confidence, here's a way that you know that you're lying to yourself. It's almost like you always are unless you're looking at the whole picture. Because I could say from 0 to 10, how confident are you in who you are compared to how confident you used to be, and you'd say 10. But compared to how confident you want to be, you'll never say 10. Yeah. So it's almost like how many people are doing this consciously. I think that's the main thing that I've tried to uncover here. Yeah. It's like crazy to think about.
Well, I think it's awareness. Like the fact that you and I did that's like an awareness test too, of like, oh yeah, that's true. Like I didn't really think of it looking back. I'm thinking of it, or I had a rough weekend in terms of my state. It wasn't my most productive weekend, so maybe I don't feel as aligned with my goals as I could. I think it's about being brutally. You have to be honest with yourself first. I think that's my takeaway is like maybe the person said, you know what, these two dudes coming in, like they look young, they have a podcast, whoop-de-doo, like what do they know? I'm not going to invest the time in actually writing out my answers. Where we've literally had people on these questionnaires that we send when we do a speech write out paragraphs of like, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this. Maybe they just thought we could help them more. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe this person is very aware of their things. They just didn't want to write it down. That's a whole nother thing. My takeaway for this is the only way you can get the right help you need is to figure out what it is. Whether that's...
Figure out what is.
What the right help you need is.
Right.
Right? Again, I've had multiple clients where I say, like, how's your business doing? I don't know. I didn't check my bank account. The right help you need, that's honesty. That's honesty. You're being brutally honest with like, I've just been afraid. That's honesty. That's huge.
Huge.
That's huge because if you said it's been good.
Right.
And I said like, how good? Very good.
Yeah, right.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
So I do think it's about radical humility. It sucks. It's hard. But we all have had those moments where it's like, you know what? This is one of the stories I love telling. I don't often tell this on the podcast. Alan, myself, and our buddy Matt went to I guess it was a networking event at a big house, a mansion at the Cape.
Oh, yeah.
I got drunk on wine and kind of sort of berated our driver because he was like, yeah, I've gotten 17 speeding tickets. It was like...
Accidents.
And I kind of made fun of him because I was a little wine drunk and I was in a funny mood. And reflecting on that, I felt bad about myself, right? We've talked about that in the past. Like, what is one thing you're ashamed of? That's it. I'm not going to forget that. But it was me having to be brutally honest with the fact that, like, that wasn't the best Kevin. Like, that I didn't need to do that. Now, again, don't tell me you've been in 17 car accidents while you're driving us home, but that's still, It's still not best Kevin. That's radical humility to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how proud am I of that version of Kevin? 0. That's hard, but it's necessary, I think, because that's what it's going to force you to make sure it never happens again.
Exactly.
There's a reason I haven't forgot about it, and I guarantee I never will.
I know.
There's a reason.
I guess, do you believe there was a core value that you broke, and that's the thing?
I just think I was being a dick.
What's the core value that was outside? I guess what was outside of alignment? Why was that version of Kevin outside of alignment?
I think I was arrogant for sure, and I don't like when I'm arrogant. Disrespectful.
Okay.
Those are probably the two biggest ones.
Anything else?
Therapy session. No, not off the top of my head. I think those are probably the two biggest ones.
Disrespectful and arrogant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's cool because it's like, Kevin, you've defined who you aspire to be, and then you went outside of alignment, and then you felt guilty. I don't think that's bad. I think it's... Either. But Kevin could easily have rationalized it of like, well, he's gotten 17 car accidents. Like, how dare he tell us that?
And I'm sure I did rationalize it.
Right.
I'm sure I did for a time.
Right.
This might... I don't think the next day I woke up and said, oh, my God, like, why did you do that? I'm sure it took reflection and a higher level of awareness. But I think the thing is... And again... Maybe you're not at the point where you can talk about it on a podcast, something that you've done. That's fine. I don't ever need anybody to need to do that. I just think for you, that had to come through me first. I had to say to myself, you know what? I'm not proud of that behavior. And I don't know what I just did. I tried to turn the clock off, but I didn't. I'm not proud of that behavior. I had to admit that to myself first before I could talk about it on the podcast, before I could tell Alan about it. That's something that is within me that I hold within me because I don't want that to happen again. But I had to admit it to myself first. That you have to. You have to admit it to you before you're willing to admit it to anybody else.
It comes back to that fundamental truth of you will never fix a problem you don't believe you have.
Yeah.
And it's not like anyone else is going to say, "Hey, Kev, you should really."
They might.
They might, but honestly, they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, probably not.
You know what I mean? Because it wasn't quote unquote that big a deal. But that's low standards. I have so many times in my life where, and I'll just go briefly over this. So if you're a new listener, you might not know this, but if you're an old listener, you know that I struggle with alcohol for a long time. And no one else considered me, I shouldn't say no one, I'm sure some people did, but like no one came to me and said, Alan, you really have a drinking problem. Like no one. But I recognized it within myself, and then I wanted to change because I wanted to set a higher standard on my own accord. It's not like, and so honestly, I think that, but for a long time, I do think I lied to myself by pretending that it wasn't a problem, or saying, well, everybody drinks, or whatever it is, whatever that insert excuse here. All of that is irrelevant if you want to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so hard to articulate, but you will never improve something that you don't believe needs to improve. And by the way, nothing really needs to improve unless you decide you want something different for your life.
So you need contrast.
You need contrast.
So the takeaways, I'm just going to make up some questions quickly and then we'll go. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard are you trying to create a brighter future? On a scale of 1 to 10, how patient, respectful, how aligned are you in your relationship as the person you want to be? How confident are you? Ask yourself those questions. And nobody's going to see the answers. Nobody's going to see the answers. And figure that out. And then we'll just work on it.
The very last thing I'll say, dude, fixed versus growth. If you have a fixed mindset and you don't believe you can change something, of course you're going to rationalize it.
Valid.
So remember, everything's figureoutable. If you're a 1 or a 2, you can make it to a 10. I've seen people who are 2s get to 7, 8, 9, like in this community.
I'm one of them.
Literally.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
If I can do it, trust me. It's just it's a matter of, I just had to admit at first that I wasn't. That's all. That's it. You have to admit what you're not in order to become what you want to be.
That was fire.
That is fire. Write that somewhere on a quote. My goodness. Every single Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our next level Meetup Monday. We do a 40-minute keynote. Pure value. All value. We pick a topic. We go super deep. We also answer questions during the whole time. But after 40 minutes, Alan and I turn off our camera. We turn off the microphones, and we let you guys go. We have a custom PDF for every single one of these where you can answer questions, but you can connect with people in the community. That's what we want you guys to do because we realize that at the end of the day, one of the big things holding people back from getting to the next level is the people that they spend time around. We have created a next level community. You can connect with those people. You might get a client. You might get a mastermind partner. You're going to get a lot of things. You're definitely going to get knowledge, and you're definitely going to get to the next level every single Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Also,
it's fire.
Next level. That was really, really strong work. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, man. Next level group coaching.
Yes, here we go.
Big deal.
It is.
New initiative.
It is. We're rolling it out.
So we're rolling it out. So starting on March 15th, we are doing a beta test group with 10 people, 3 months, $75 a month per person, 10 people. There's going to be a WhatsApp with 24/7 text access to Kevin and I and to this group. Okay, imagine what your life could look like in 3 months from today if you had an accountability group where there was progress reports, there was peak performance tracking, and there was bi-weekly calls. So that's 3 months, $75 a month, 2 calls per month, so that's 6 calls total. 6 hour-long calls with Kevin and I where we're literally, it is our entire goal to help you achieve your goals, period. We're going to come in with the truth, and we're going to identify some of the lies you've been telling, the limiting beliefs. A limiting belief, the definition of it is a lie you've been telling yourself. Let us help you uncover some of that stuff. Let us help you help yourself, and join us.
Yes, join us. We are super, super excited to roll that out. Ladies and gentlemen, up next, we have a very special episode with a very special guest. We interviewed him a while back. Ryan Bliss is a childhood friend of Alan. He is a director. He has a movie that is very legit with some very legit actors, and he's very, very deep in his dream chasing. Mm-hmm. He's at the next level of his business and what he's doing, and we want to share the knowledge and the lessons he's learned over the years of chasing his dreams, getting over people not believing in him, the long nights, all that happy jazz. He's actually made it, so we're going to interview him. He's going to be in studio on Sunday.
He's a close friend of mine. I grew up with him, and I literally watched him as a young kid, young boy, wanted to be a famous director like a Steven Spielberg or like a Quentin Tarantino. And I've watched him get actually laughed at by people close to him, and he made it happen. He's carved his own unique path. He has a movie called Alice Fades Away that's available anywhere you buy movies, and it does have some very, very, very legit famous actors, and it's just awesome to see how far he's come.
Do not miss that one. I'm very excited to chat with him again because
he's hilarious.
That was
too.
a very good one.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed. As always, we don't have fans, we have family, and we will see you on the next one.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.